I know the exact second she tried to take my life. Not end it, wear it. Like it was a coat she could slip into, smile at herself in my mirror, and walk out the door, leaving me standing barefoot in the doorway of my own home. There she was on my phone screen that Sunday morning, sunlight pouring across my kitchen island. The same one I sanded and stained with my own hands, my white marble catching the light the way I love, that soft glow. She leaned against it in my robe, my mug in her hand. My dog's paws on her knee like Pepper had forgotten who bought her the treats and bathed her when she rolled in dirt. The caption was short, smug, and unreal. "Taking her life," she wrote with a winking emoji. People laughed in the comments. Heart eyes. Champagne bottles, shared it to their stories. Isn't she bold? Isn't she brave? I wasn't brave. Not right then. I was hollow. The sound in my head was a single soft tearing, like a seam coming apart. My name is Maya, and that morning I sat on the edge of my bed, phone shaking in my hand, watching a woman I barely knew step into my world with my husband's sweater on her shoulders and call it hers. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone. I wanted to vanish. But I didn't do any of that. I breathed. I blinked. And I hit save on every single post she made. You're about to hear how, in 2 weeks, that same woman who bragged about taking my life was evicted from it. How she packed her boxes in silence while the truth stood by my side. If you're new here, there's something I need from you before we start. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because this story, it's not just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your name with a steady hand. You ready? Let me take you back to where the first thread loosened. To a night that smelled faintly of rain and lemon cleaner, when my husband hung his jacket on the wrong hook and looked at me like I was a stranger in my own house. Before the flames, there's always a spark, and mine started with a soft lie that felt like a hug I never asked for. We bought the house with the blue shutters in the second spring after our wedding. Blue like my grandma's hydrangeas, like the necklace I wore the day Derek asked me to marry him. We were a picture then. Him with a new promotion at the agency. Me with my tiny home staging business, finally taking clients who weren't just my sister's friends. A dog who liked to sleep on my feet. A yard with a lemon tree that never seemed to stop giving. The house was mine on paper, an inheritance, written down in my name years before we ever said vows. But in practice, it was ours in all the ways that counted. Or so I thought. We had our rituals, coffee with cinnamon in the mornings. Tuesdays were pasta night. Movie nights where I always picked something with a twist and Derek pretended he hated it, then gasped at the end like it wasn't predictable. I kept candles in the entryway and cleaned windows till the light came in just right. He played basketball on Thursdays and came home smelling like cold air and the wool hoodie he loved. He kissed me in the doorway, and I'd feel the world settle. Little cracks came like whispers. His phone turned over on the counter. A new brand of cologne that didn't smell like him. A laugh that wasn't mine on a voice memo he forgot to delete. Work dinners that became work drinks that became I'll be late. Don't wait up. You know the script. If you've lived it, you know the exact tone of a text that says nothing and everything at once. I told myself it was stress. People make mistakes, I said. We are not our worst weeks, I said. And when he looked at me with tired eyes and said, I just need a little space, May. I nodded like understanding was a character trait I was proud of, instead of a reflex I couldn't turn off. The house noticed before I did. The keys were tossed instead of placed in the bowl. The music was louder. Pepper slept by the door. I'd wake up at 2 and find him scrolling in the bathroom light, the glow making a stranger's silhouette on my wall. Then came the hair, long and copper, curled in a way I've never worn my hair. It clung to the inside of his jacket like a secret. I plucked it out with shaking fingers, held it to the light, and didn't say a word. Because sometimes you need silence to hear what your life is trying to tell you. Sometimes you need the quiet to gather the strength to make one clean cut instead of 1,000 tiny tears. I folded the jacket. I made the bed. I wrote an invoice. And when he came home that night with roses, I placed them in a vase and felt something inside me sit down and fold its hands. Roses, I asked, not looking at him. What? He said, like the word itself was a trap. Who are they for? I asked, when we both knew the answer didn't matter anymore. The reveal wasn't fireworks. It was a drip. The day after the roses, I got a DM from a client, one of those messages that starts with, "Hey babe, I hate to be the one." A screenshot. A tagged location. The photo was soft and dreamy, hands on a steering wheel I knew too well, the leather my fingers had worn smooth. A wrist with a bracelet I bought on a beach in Maui, riding up a sweater I've washed 100 times. The caption was, "Sunday drives in my favorite city with my favorite person." She didn't tag Derek. She didn't have to. I clicked through. Her name was Sienna. Of course it was. She had 1,000 little sunsets on her feed, poses on marble countertops. Latte art with hearts, that laugh that echoed on the voice memo. A world painted in warm filters where everything tasted like vanilla. I scrolled past the staged mornings and the big hats and the brand deals. Then I saw my dog. She posted a video in our living room, Pepper rolling over on command, tail thumping. "I taught her a new trick," the text said. Pepper was wearing the yellow bandana I got at the farmer's market. My yellow bandana, my living room, my dog. I sat down, I saved every clip. Hands steady, breath slow, eyes stinging. My fingers didn't shake until I hit the one that stopped me cold. There was my kitchen island, my robe, my mug, the light exactly how I like it in the morning. And that caption, "Taking her life." Heart, champagne, you go girl, how savage. The comments clapped while my chest caved in. I sent the link to Derek. No words, just the link. He left work early. Stood in the doorway with his keys in his hand like he wasn't sure if the house would still take him back. "It's not what you think," he said, eyes wide with the kind of fear that makes people say the stupidest possible sentence in any language. "You need to start with the truth," I said. My voice was quiet. It surprised both of us. "Who is she?" "Someone from work," he said, swallowing. I made a mistake." "Her name is Sienna," I said. He flinched. "She's been in this house." He tried to laugh. "You're being dramatic," he said. "She came by once, just once to drop off." "My dog knows her," I said. He watched me for a long moment, measuring if I was the version of me he could talk out of things. He stepped closer. "May," he said softly, "we can fix this. I love you. She's nothing." "She posted from my home," I said. "She's drinking from my cup in my robe with my dog on her knee, and she wrote, 'Taking her life.'" She didn't whisper. She announced, "So if she's nothing, she's a very loud nothing." He had no defense for the caption. He did what people do when the truth is clear. He tried to move fast. "I'll end it," he said. "I'll call her now in front of you." I looked at him. I thought about the nights, about the hair, about the way my keys had felt like they belonged to someone else's hand. I shook my head. "It's already ended," I said. "You just don't know it yet." He stared at me like the floor had moved and he hadn't. "You going to kick me out?" he asked. The question was small, but it was the right one. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because revenge isn't a door slam. It's a lever. And when you pull it, you want to be sure of what will fall and where it will land. I thought about the deed tucked in a folder in the safe. About the prenup he'd been too lovesick to read hard when we signed it. I thought about how she had baptized herself in my morning light and dared me to bless it. So I said, "No, I'm going to think." And then I went upstairs and cried without making a sound, the way you cry when you're trying not to wake the part of you that could still beg. Heartbreak is noisy at first. It demands attention. But after the first storm, it falls quiet. Those next few days were quiet like snow. I moved through the house with care, touching the backs of chairs, picking up glasses, folding blankets. The normal things saved me. They reminded me I was real. That before him and after him, I would still know how to smooth a crease with the palm of my hand. Sienna didn't stop posting. Silence didn't shame her. She doubled down. A close-up of my lemon tree outside and a caption about fresh start energy. A clip of Pepper tugging at the leash on my street with the number of my block in the background. A shot of the inside of my closet with a wink about borrowing. And then the one that pushed something in me from grief to steel. She wore my gray cashmere sweater, Derek's favorite, and stood in front of my bathroom mirror. "We like the same things," she wrote. Not my fault. Comments poured in. Some called me out without tagging. "Wife couldn't keep him." "Upgrade." "Manifestation queen." People love a villain when they don't have to be the one robbed. Derek moved like a man trying to juggle glass. He'd leave early, come back late, watch my face like it was a forecast. I blocked her, he said one night, breathless. It's over. My phone buzzed with a new post from her 20 seconds later. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was danger. She had tagged places near our home. She had filmed out front in the street. She had given the internet a map to my life. Women DM'd me with screenshots of her replies, the way she goaded. One said, "You should be careful. This girl is not afraid of smoke." There's a particular kind of anger that doesn't make you break things. It makes you organize. I started a folder, screenshots, captures, dates. I made a list, locks, bank, phone plan, utilities. The thing about being underestimated, it's fuel. While she posted and laughed and Derek stammered, I lined up dominoes with quiet hands. One evening, I stood in the doorway and watched him butter toast. "I need my space," I said, echoing his words. "There's a hotel on 6th. Stay there for a few nights." He looked confused, then grateful. "Okay," he said, nodding like he'd earned a break. "Give you time to breathe." "Yes," I said. I didn't say that it would give me time to move the pieces where I needed them. He packed in 30 minutes, tossed clothes, grabbed his laptop, kissed Pepper like she was his. "I'll call you," he said. He took the keys to my car off the hook, hesitated, and put them back. "I'll take a rideshare," he said, and for the first time I saw a flash of the man who would eventually beg me with open palms in a driveway. Not yet. Soon. Alone, I stood in the middle of the entryway and listened to the house breathe. I went to the safe. I pulled out the deed. My name in ink that had barely faded even a little. The prenup. His lawyer's signature. My lawyer's neat handwriting in the margin. The paragraph about separate property. The clause about unauthorized occupants. Damn, did I bless my past self that night. I called someone I hadn't spoken to in a year. Alina, the lawyer who'd sat with me in a coffee shop after my grandma died, and said, "We do this now before love makes you generous in ways that cost you later." She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Maya," she said. "How bad?" "Bad," I said, "but fixable." "Do you want to burn it down?" she asked. "Or do you want to be able to sleep at night?" "I want paper," I said. "I want everything neat. I want the truth to do the heavy lifting." She said. "That's my favorite kind." Alina is small and soft-spoken, the kind of person people take for kind and harmless. She's not harmless. She's a scalpel. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table Sienna had leaned against, and Alina laid out a little stack of thin, sharp things. "First," she said, "we see the house, still deeded to you alone. You didn't add him." "No," I said. "He didn't care. He said paperwork made him itchy." I had thought it was sweet then. Now I saw it as laziness dressed as charm. "Good," she said, tapping the deed. "Second, the prenup. You kept it simple. Property in your name remains yours. If he moves out, he has no right to re-enter without your consent. He's gone now." "Hotel," I said. "Change the locks," she said, calm as a weather report. "Today, add cameras. Third, you've got harassment from the girlfriend. She's posting in your home. She's tagging your block. She's claiming ownership. Gather every post. We'll write a cease and desist, and more important, we'll request a temporary protective order for harassment. If granted, it will bar her from approaching your home. If she violates it, we call the police. Not for drama, for safety." "Can I evict her?" I asked the word like it was a curse and a blessing. "She's not a tenant," Alina said. "She's a guest of someone who doesn't have the right to host. You don't need a long eviction. You need to revoke permission to enter. You'll post a notice of revocation of license to enter on your door and email copies to Derek and to her. You'll also notify your HOA and your security company. If she steps foot inside after that, she's trespassing. You'll call me. I'll call the sheriff." It sounded too easy. It was precise. "What about Derek?" I asked. "He's not all bad." The words sounded small out loud. "Love has a way of protecting the person who broke it." She was gentle. "You can be kind and clear," she said. "Send him a letter revoking his license to enter, pending a conversation about separation. Offer to meet in a public place. The law is on your side here, Maya. You prepared for this without knowing you prepared." I breathed out. The air felt strange in my chest, like something packing itself back into place. "Last," she said, "don't engage online. Let her perform. Let her believe the stage is hers. We'll use that, not fight it. What about his job? I asked before I knew I'd ask. Is it petty to tell them? She's posting from his account sometimes. They work together. Alina tilted her head. Tell HR if there is a policy violation, but do not embellish. Facts only. Screenshots only. No adjectives. Let the conduct speak. People hang themselves with their own rope if you hand them facts. I nodded. Facts. The word felt like a life raft. Alina drafted. I signed. We printed. The printer hummed and hummed like a small engine as we fed it everything she'd ever written about my mornings. The notice of revocation of license to enter looked plain. No big letters, no drama, just a date, a name, and the clear line that said, "You do not have permission to be here." When Alina left, I sat with the letter like it was a spell. I taped it to my front door, feeling a thrill at the simplicity of it. I printed a second copy and taped it to the kitchen window facing the yard, for anyone coming around the back with bad intentions and a smug smile. Then I did the things that make you feel in control. I changed my passwords. I moved our joint savings into my separate account with a note to him attached. I canceled the extra line on our phone plan. I called the lock guy and tipped him well. I patted Pepper's head when she looked at me like, "What is happening?" I said. "We're just making things safe, baby." At 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, a photo of my front door, the letter visible. The message said, "Cute." No name, no signature. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Alina and turned up my porch light. A moth fluttered at the glass, gentle and dumb. I watched it, listened to the night, and thought, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is long enough to make a point without losing your soul. People think revenge is screaming on a lawn and tossing clothes out a window. That's TV. Real revenge, clean revenge, is administrative. It's email subject lines that say, "Per my last." It's certified letters and receipts. It's the calm voice you use on the phone with your bank while your heart drums in your throat. I mailed the cease and desist to Sienna's business address, to her brand email, to her apartment, to her Instagram DM. I CC'd myself. I CC'd a folder. I CC'd my future peace. I also did something that raised eyebrows in my group chat. I called our HOA. I told them about the filming, about the unapproved commercial content on our street, about outside vendors for her little content shoots parking in front of driveways, about noise at odd hours. HOAs are like dragons. You think they're sleeping until you wave a flag. Then they breathe paper fire. Within 48 hours, there was a notice on the street, no unauthorized filming. No outside vendors without permits. No noise after 9. Fines for violations would be immediate and stacked. I smiled. Not because I wanted to be petty, because I wanted boundaries to have teeth. I sent Derek the letter revoking his license to enter without my consent. I wrote it in soft words. I told him we'd speak in person at a cafe on Friday. He responded with a thumb up like the end of a casual chat. Then, "Can Sienna at least come get her things?" The audacity made my mouth drop open. "She has no things here," I wrote. "Anything that is not mine will be handed to you by the sheriff." Silence. Alina filed for the temporary protective order for harassment against Sienna the morning after the cute text. We attached screenshots. We attached that caption, those tags, the video of my closet, the street number visible. I showed the judge the message sent to me late at night, the photo of my front door. The order was granted that afternoon. It was temporary, 2 weeks, but that was all I needed. It barred Sienna from coming within 100 yards of my home, from contacting me, from posting my location. If she violated it, it wouldn't be a social media clapback. It would be a phone call to people who showed up with notepads and stern faces and the authority to say, "Leave now." I can't tell you how good that felt. Not the power, never that. The safety. The knowledge that paper could stand between me and a woman who believed my life was content. The next day, she posted an old photo from my kitchen, a throwback to last week. Caption, "Can't keep me away." Brave online, I thought, but she didn't come, because paper had a way of making brave people boring. I also sent a calm email to Derek's HR department. I did not call from a burner account. I did not use dramatic subject lines. I wrote, "Policy concern. Supervisor-subordinate relationship and inappropriate use of company time resources. I attached screenshots of posts filmed during office hours in my home, the captions with tags that linked to his agency's client campaigns, the DM she'd sent someone bragging about working her way up. No adjectives, no long story. Just links and times and dates. I signed my name. I wrote my phone number. I said, I will not be involved in internal matters beyond confirming the facts. Then I closed my laptop and went outside and watered my lemon tree. It shook in the breeze and pelted my feet with leaves that smelled like summer. For the first time in days, I felt the skin on my wrists loosen. That night, she posted a story from a restaurant bathroom with a friend, lips puckered, hand on hip. The text read, "She thinks a piece of paper can stop a goddess." I held my breath. I imagined her driving to my house for that perfect, defiant photo. I pictured the sheriff's car idling nearby. I pictured a line drawn in paint and someone stepping over it in high heels. But the night passed quiet. Friday came. Derek arrived at the cafe on time, wearing that blue shirt that makes his eyes look kind. He smiled. I didn't. He reached for my hand. I kept mine on my cup. "I messed up," he said, eyes glossy. "I ended it. I'm in a hotel. We can fix this." "I'm not interested in fixing. We right now," I said. "I'm here to talk about what happens next." He swallowed. "Okay," he nodded. He looked like he was about to cry. "I'll move to a short-term rental. I'll give you space. May, I love you. This is stupid. You're my home." "Home is not a prize you win and hang on the wall," I said softly. "You don't get to talk about loving me while you hand her my mug." He shut his eyes. "I know." He took a breath. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to respect the order," I said. "I need you to not bring her here. I need you to tell her to stop posting my life. I need you to remember the paperwork you signed before you slipped my ring on my finger." He nodded like a child. "I told HR I'll take a leave," he said quietly. "They got an email. I'm not asking if it was you. I know it was. I deserved it." "I didn't write anything that wasn't true," I said. We drank our coffee. It tasted bitter and new. When we stood to go, he leaned in like he was going to kiss my cheek. I stepped back. "We'll talk," I said. It wasn't a promise. It was a fact. And I walked away feeling tall and hollow and alive. By the weekend, the dominoes I had lined up began to fall with the soft clicks I'd imagined in the dark when sleep didn't come. HR sent an acknowledgement. That was it. No gossip, no emotion, just "We received your email and will handle internally." That night, Derek texted, "Taking leave to clear my head." His head, not his conscience. I put my phone face down and fed Pepper. She thumped her tail like the world was fine because dinner came at 5 and her bowl was clean. Saturday morning brought a new post that made my jaw clench. Sienna filmed herself at a storage unit, talking to the camera, pouting. "When you're trying to move into your new home but jealous vibes are in the air," she said, rolling her eyes. She panned to a stack of boxes labeled Kitchen M, Closet M, Bath M. She spelled my name on cardboard like it was a victory chant. My skin went cold. The caption, "Sometimes you have to take what's yours." My phone rang. "Alina, you see it?" she asked. "Yes." "Good," she said. "Calling the sheriff. They will be in the neighborhood this evening. Stay out of it. Do not engage. If you see her, call me, not her." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Now," my bones said, "now we do the thing." We waited. It's funny how your world can be on fire, and still you have to wash towels and answer emails and put away groceries. My hands moved. My mind kept time. At 4, a gentle knock at my door made Pepper bark like the house was a drum. Through the peephole, a deputy, neat, polite. "Ms. Carter," he asked when I opened the door a little. "We're serving a temporary protective order to a Ms. Vale. You've verified the address." "She has not been inside since the order," I said, "but she's been circling." "You call us if you see her," he said, and his voice felt like a net below a tightrope. "Don't try to handle it. That's what we're here for." I thanked him. I closed the door. I walked to the window like a woman in a movie who's about to watch a storm roll in across a field. At 6, a car I didn't know pulled up. White, windows tinted. People underestimate how loud tires sound on gravel if you're already listening. Sienna got out in a white dress like a ghost and big sunglasses like a disguise that didn't work. She held her phone out to film her own arrival. She wanted the clip of her walking through my gate with a smile, captioned something like, "Try me." We both knew it. She reached for the latch. A voice behind her said, "Ma'am." She turned. The deputy didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch her. He held up a paper. "You've been served," he said. "This order says you can't be here." She laughed, loud. "I can be anywhere I want," she said to the camera, to him, to me who she knew was at the window. "This is my boyfriend's house." "It's not," he said, voice steady. "It's Ms. Carter's property. You cannot enter. If you do, you'll be arrested." The smile faltered, only a flicker, but it was there. She lowered the phone an inch. "I'm just picking up my things," she said, sarcasm edging the words. "She has my clothes." "I have nothing of yours," I said in my head, tasting the words. I stayed silent. "You'll need to arrange a civil standby with Ms. Carter's permission," the deputy said, "which I do not believe you have." She looked up at the window like she could burn me with her eyes from the yard. "Coward," she mouthed. I lifted my chin. I didn't move. The deputy was a wall. She stared for a long moment, then she did something I did not expect. She cried, just for a second. The sunglasses came off, and her eyes were a color that would look pretty if they weren't full of spite. She turned on her heel, got in at the passenger side, and slammed the door. The car pulled away. A minute later, my phone buzzed. A story, the deputy's car in the frame, the caption, "This is harassment." The replies, "Suing time. Haters will hate. Manifesting a new house." I stared. I felt that quiet again. The kind that comes after an earthquake when nothing is moving and you wonder if it ever will again. 2 days. It had only been 2 days since the caption. It felt like a lifetime. But the plan had time left to run. I wasn't done. The next move wasn't a dramatic knock. It was an email, cold, kind, and devastating. HR asked Derek and Sienna to come in for a meeting. Separate, then together. I didn't hear what was said. I only saw the result in her posts. The filter came off. She went live. That's how you know it's getting real. They go live to gather an army. "People are trying to destroy me," she said, shoulders bare, hair perfect, mascara minimal so you'd see her eyes. "They want to evict me from my home, my work, my life." She called me obsessed. She called me names I won't repeat. She said she and Derek were in love. She said love was brave. She said I was a hater stuck in the past. I watched, quiet. Her comments were a fairground ride, spinning and woozy. Some cheered, some were cautious. A few women spoke truth. "Sis, be careful posting the wife's address. HR is not a joke. If it's his wife's house, you can't move in." Then came the line that made my skin prickle. "They can't evict me," she said with a smile that trembled. "You can't evict love." The feed froze for a second. When it came back, she had anger in the corners of her mouth. Elena texted, "Don't watch." I put the phone down. I went for a walk. I passed the tree where the old lady on the corner drapes birdseed. She looked at me with those eyes that have seen everything. "You okay?" she asked. "Working on it," I said. "Keep your chin up," she said, like an incantation. Back home, the HOA had left a letter at my door. "We have received reports of unpermitted filming on the premises by non-residents. Fines will be assessed for any violations." Attached, a calendar of days she'd filmed, drawn from her own posts. I sent them a thank you. People undervalue gratitude. The manager called me later. "We got you," she said, and I believed her. Then the brand deals started to wobble. It takes one email to a PR person with a subject line, "Safety concern regarding brand ambassador." I didn't write that email. I didn't need to. Her own followers did. Screenshots of her standing in my kitchen in a robe she called borrowed. Comments of taking her life. A reply from me to no one at all. The PR team's response was swift and boring. "We have policies about representing healthy, safe values." Code 4, we step away when the pitchforks come out. She posted a story about canceled bags. The caption, "They can't shut me down." But a little tremor ran through the words. Derek texted me, "They suspended me." The words carried a weird relief. He would sit still now. He would stop moving. Sometimes people stop skidding when they hit grass. Sometimes they keep sliding. He did both in turns. I slept that night for 3 hours in a row, the longest since it all began. I dreamed I was in my grandma's kitchen, hands in flour, her voice in my ear. "People can take a lot from you," she said. "Don't hand them the knife." Our next step was simple and final. The civil standby. We scheduled it for Tuesday afternoon. The deputy would come. Derek could show up to gather whatever was his. He could bring a friend. Sienna could not. I offered a box. I offered civility. I did not offer my kitchen light. Tuesday felt like a long hallway. At 2, the deputy parked in front. At 2:15, Derek arrived. He looked like a boy who'd failed a test. He nodded to the deputy. "Thank you," he said, like manners could rebuild a bridge in a day. I opened the door just enough. He stood on the mat. The threshold felt like a line drawn by God. "You can take anything that's yours," I said. "I'll put it by the door. Please do not come inside." He nodded. I brought boxes one by one. Shirts, books, shoes, the sweater I'd bought him that winter it snowed in our city and we went outside barefoot to feel it. He didn't ask for anything that wasn't his. He didn't even look past me into the hall. He didn't ask about the guest room where we kept our Christmas lights. He knew better. Sienna appeared at 2:17 like a storm cloud. She hopped out of a car and marched up the walk in that same white dress like it was her uniform for defiance. "I'm here," she said brightly to the deputy. "Civil standby, I'm civil." "You're not on the list," he said. "Please return to your vehicle." She stared at me over his shoulder. "She's still inside," she said to Derek, as if I were the ghost. "Let me in." Derek looked at his shoes. "Go back to the car," he said, voice small. She laughed without humor. "You're really going to let her?" The deputy raised his hand, not touching just there. "Ma'am," he said, "return to your vehicle, now." There was weight in the last word. For a second, she looked truly surprised, like the world didn't often tell her no and mean it. She took a step toward my door. The deputy's voice changed. "Don't make me repeat myself," he said, and the air went tight. She stopped. Her eyes found mine. She mouthed, "This isn't over," and I felt a ribbon of fear run through me, not because of her. Because I recognized something in myself, the urge to shout, to hit back, to make it messy. I swallowed that urge like a bitter pill. I stood still. I handed Derek a box with his cufflinks in it. He took it like it weighed more than steel. Sienna retreated finally, her heels clicking on the walk like metronomes for a song where she was offbeat. She sat in the passenger seat and filmed herself because of course she did. The caption, "Imagine being this insecure." I closed the door. I leaned my back against it. I listened to the deputy give Derek a few last words I didn't catch. I breathed. It was almost over. But what's almost over and what's over aren't twins. One still has the power to sting. The day she was evicted from my life was a Thursday that smelled like rain on hot pavement. It didn't come with trumpets or flames. It came with a clipboard and a watch. At 9 in the morning, the sheriff's office called to confirm the time for the enforcement of the protective order and the trespass notice. At noon, the HOA manager called to confirm no filming crew would be allowed on the street. At 2, my locksmith returned to adjust a sticky deadbolt and to install a new security bar that slides into place like a sentence that clicks closed. At 3:15, a white car rolled up again. Sienna stepped out and looked different. The dress was gone. She wore leggings and a hoodie, hair pulled back. No sunglasses, just eyes that had burned too long. She carried a bag like ballistic proof. She walked up my path like she owned it. The deputy on duty that day was a woman. She moved like a question asked once that expects a simple answer. "You're in violation of a protective order," she said without preamble. "You need to leave." Sienna blinked. "I'm moving in," she said, absurdity laid plain in daylight. "I've been living here." "You have not," the deputy said, holding up paperwork. "This is Ms. Carter's property. You are prohibited from entering. If you continue, you will be taken into custody." There it was, that little flinch. She looked at me, and I saw it, some small piece of her that still believed her own bravado cracking. "You can't evict love," she said again, but the word love rolled over a stone on its way out. "Love doesn't break into houses," the deputy said, and I almost smiled at that. "Step back." Derek wasn't there. He texted me later to say he was at his sister. Shaking. I didn't respond. This wasn't his scene to star in. Neighbors watched like birds on a line. You always try to act like you're not watching. You always are. Miss June from the corner crossed her arms and stood like a gate. Two teenagers paused their bikes. A car slowed, then kept going, sensitive enough to pretend life wasn't interesting. Fine, Sienna said, packing. Fine, but my things. You have no belongings here, the deputy said. You'll coordinate with Mr. Carter directly for any items he purchased for you to retrieve from his residence. This is not your residence. Do you understand? Sienna threw her head back the way you do when you're out of words. She looked at me one more time, a look that said something like help and something like hate, and I felt a pang. Not for her. For the version of me once who thought wanting enough was the same as being right. Desire is a liar when it's dressed like destiny. She turned. She walked back down the path. She got in the car. She didn't film. She didn't throw a tantrum. She didn't make a scene that would have made her followers say queen. She left. It was quiet in the yard. It was quiet in me. The deputy turned to me. Call us if there's any other issues, she said. We'll keep a cruiser nearby for a few days. Thank you, I said, and my voice cracked on the second syllable. She nodded. She looked at me like a woman looks at another woman when she knows what it costs to stand up straight in public. You came to my fitting, didn't you? She asked, a laugh catching on the edge of her voice, shocked and a little wild. You were there. I was behind the drape, I said. I kept it professional. I only stepped into the open now. I mocked your dress, she said, giving herself that truth without me handing it to her. I didn't recognize it. It's not flashy, I said, and my mouth ticked up before I could stop it, a tiny smile that said I remembered everything and loved myself anyway. But it's mine. She looked at Ethan then. He was circling the periphery of the conversation like a moth, deciding which flame might not end him. Ethan, she said, voice low but not kind, did you know? He made the weak choice. This is a stunt, he said, not answering the question he'd been asked. She's jealous. She's trying to. She lifted a hand, not to him, to the air, the way a conductor stops a section from playing until they find the tempo again. Answer me, she said, still low. Did you know she designed this gown? He swallowed. Not exactly, not. He saw his path and sprinted for it. Camellia outsources. A lot of hands touch a dress, it's not. That's not the question, she said. She wasn't a kind person in the way the world uses the word to mean soft. But in that moment, she was honest, and honesty is a muscle I respect. She looked at me. Do you have proof? Yes, I said simply. House Camellia's internal archive shows design attribution. The atelier head can confirm. The thread at your hem is registered to me. And while we're nomming documents also, I have copies of my sketches, dates, emails, and filings that show how he moved my work into his name like it was furniture he could rearrange. I haven't gone public. I didn't want to, I breathed. Until today. A hush that wasn't fear fell again. It was the hush of a jury that didn't ask to be impaneled and finds itself listening anyway. A voice rose from the bar, one of Ethan's college friends with a loud laugh. Come on, he scoffed, fragile bravado shining like cheap lacquer. This is a wedding. It is, Aunt Red Lipstick said, firm enough to pin him to the floor with her tone. That doesn't make it a place where lies are allowed. The planner slid to my side. Do you want me to call Ms. Whittaker? She whispered, and I loved her for knowing the exact name to say. No, I said, not yet. Because this wasn't about piling on proof like bricks until someone suffocated. This was about letting the air in. I turned back to the room. I didn't touch the mic. I didn't need to. I need to say one more thing, I said. Then I'm done. I didn't come to ruin a day. I came to repair a year. I looked at Sienna. I forgive you for mocking me. We all mock what we don't understand sometimes. I forgive you for loving a story more than the truth. I did that too once. But now you know. Decide who you want to be with it. I looked at Ethan, the man I married, the man who taught me how to take a deep breath and how to stop needing permission to breathe. I don't hate you, I said, soft enough that he had to lean in to hear, and maybe that was the most generous thing I'd ever given him. But I won't let you shrink me to fit your pocket. Not ever again. I turned to leave the center of the room. Not storming, not dramatic, just done. Before I could step away, the DJ, who had been watching all this with eyes like a hawk and hands like a surgeon, did something that felt like a blessing. He dimmed the warm wash and for one clean second pulsed the cool white flash around the room 3 times. On, off, on, off, on, off. The train glowed, then rested. Glowed, then rested. Each burst wrote the wings into the silk and unwrote them, like a promise speaking, then pausing, then speaking again. People clapped. Not a roar, not a rally, but a recognition clap, the kind theater gives when an understudy steps in and nails a note. The kind people give when truth lands without breaking the floor. That clap broke something in Ethan's spine that had been too stiff for too long. He lunged, and I saw the old version of him, the one who could charm a banker and disarm a room, reach for me. "Maya," he said too loud, "you're making a scene." I looked at the photographer. He shook his head once, tiny, the way someone does when they've seen enough. He lowered his camera. He wasn't going to capture this part. It didn't need to be preserved. "You made the scene," I said, not unkind. "I'm just turning the lights on." He swallowed. He turned to the room, hands up like a man calming a dog. "This is a misunderstanding. We'll clear it up. Please enjoy yourselves." No one left. No one cheered for him. They simply watched. And there's nothing harder to stand under than a soft gaze that expects you to tell the truth. Sienna took a breath. "If she designed this dress," she said, not looking at me now, looking at him, "why didn't you tell me?" "My love," he said, low, coaxing, the tone that had worked on me 100 times. "I didn't know, not for sure, and this isn't." She shook her head. She wasn't going to let him lull the room back to sleep. "Why didn't you tell me her work was your wife?" "Ex-wife," he said too fast. Then he flinched at his own correction, because that was the wrong part to emphasize and everyone heard it. The planner's phone buzzed. She glanced down. Then she looked up at me and nodded as if the universe had just handed us an assist. "The atelier head is here," she mouthed. My eyebrows flew up. Ms. Whittaker had come of her own accord because someone on her team had texted her because she knew the thread in that hem like she knew her morning tea. She walked in with her calm like a cloak, not rushing, not grabbing the spotlight, just solid. She reached me first, touched my hand once, warm, grounding, and turned to Sienna with a professional's grace. "Your gown is exquisite on you," she said, "and it was designed by this woman." She nodded at me, not like a surprise reveal, but like a gentle correction no one could argue with because facts are stubborn in the prettiest way. "Our logs confirm it. So does the thread at your hem. I am not here to create drama. I am here to keep the record clean." A beat, then another clap, soft and respectful. This one didn't land on me like a gift. It landed on us, all the invisible hands in the room who make things and get forgotten. The stylists. The planners, the DJ, the photographer, the seamstresses, the floral assistant who spent 2 hours wiring a peony because it wouldn't sit right. It was their clap too. Sienna stood very still. Then she did the bravest thing I saw her do that day. She looked at the planner. "Can you give me a moment with my husband?" Her voice didn't shake. They walked to a quiet corner behind a column of lilies. They didn't shout. They didn't perform. Their heads bent together. His hands moved like a man pleading for a second story. Hers moved like a woman, drawing a map of a new route. I let them have their privacy. I went to my corner and put down my glass, hands finally trembling a little now that the adrenaline had left. Lara texted me from across the country, even though she had no way of knowing what was happening in real time. "Proud of you, sunshine. Have you eaten?" Only Lara could hold those 2 sentences in her hands at the same time and make them weigh the same. I laughed to myself and breathed. Ms. Whittaker stood beside me like an anchor. "You did it," she said. I didn't want to break a day. "You didn't," she said. "You corrected it." We stood there together, 2 women who knew what thread can do that words can't sometimes, and we watched the next choice unfold. The lilies were tall enough to pretend they were trees. Their scent hung thick, like a memory you can't shake even if you open all the windows. We stepped behind them, Sienna first, Ethan a pace behind her, me last, and for a second the room dimmed into a hush that felt like a confession booth without walls. She turned to him. No performance now, no audience. Just a woman in a white dress finally looking at the man beside her as if he were a headline she hadn't read yet. "Tell me the truth," she said, 4 words steady as stitches. Ethan smoothed his tie. Old habit, old armor. "I told you, this is not what it looks like. She's twisting." "No," she cut in, not cruel, just certain. "That line worked on other people. It doesn't work here. Did you know she designed my dress?" He tried a half smile, shoulders lifted like a shrug might be a shield. "Brands outsource, a dozen hands." "Stop explaining something I did not ask," she said. "Did you know it was her?" Silence comes in many flavors. This one tasted like a penny on the tongue. He exhaled. "I suspected," he said, eyes skittering away from mine. "I wasn't sure." "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice low but not small. "You knew I came into her studio. You knew I purchased her pieces. You knew," she glanced at me, then back at him. "You knew we had history." He pressed his fingers to his forehead like he could push the right words out if he leaned hard enough. "Because it wasn't the point. The point is, the brand handled it. The point is, today is our day and she." She laughed once, no joy in it. "Our day? How many of our days looked like this under the surface? How many of our deals came from work that wasn't yours?" She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Her calm did more damage than a shout ever could. "I won't be a crown on a stolen story." He reached for her wrist. She stepped back, small, clear. "Don't," she said. He let his hand fall. The muscle in his jaw fluttered like a trapped moth. She turned to me. "Why didn't you tell me during the fittings?" Not an accusation, an honest question. "You were there." "Because I gave House Camellia my word," I said. "And because I didn't want to use your day to fight my old fight. I came tonight ready to keep my mouth shut if my work could stay quietly mine. But when the light hit and my signature showed, it felt wrong to sit there and pretend not to see myself. I didn't plan a spectacle. I planned a truth." She took that in. Her eyes moved, left-right, as if she were sorting receipts in her head. "And you sewed a mark I couldn't see until the light changed." "I always have," I said. "Long before you, long before him, it's mine, it hurts nobody. It helps me breathe." Behind us, the room kept moving, servers with trays, a cousin telling a story too loudly, the soft thrum of music like a heartbeat. Out here, time stretched thin. Ethan found my face at last. "You could have come to me," he said, a whisper that wanted to be a shout and didn't dare. "We could have." "We did that already," I said. "In rooms where papers were signed and pens bled out promises. You taught me how those conversations end." His mouth opened, then closed. Words, for once, didn't rescue him. Sienna lifted her veil, touched the comb, and paused. I watched that tiny moment like it was a cliff edge. She pulled the comb out, slowly. The veil slid down and she handed it to the planner, who stood like a witness with a clipboard and a spine of steel under her smile. "I'm not breaking my own day," Sienna said, almost to herself. "I'm resetting it." She faced us again. To me, "If I ask the DJ to bring up the light and ask the room to give you credit, will you come stand beside me?" She saw me hesitate. She added softer, "I can do it alone if you prefer, but I'd like you there." I let a breath out. "I'll stand near," I said. "Not in the center, this is still your wedding." She nodded, then to Ethan. "You will not take the mic, not yet. If you love me, you'll let me handle this in my voice." He looked like a man on a ladder that suddenly remembered height. "See." "Don't nickname me right now," she said, and somehow that cut deeper than any other word could have. The planner, efficient magic wrapped in a satin jumpsuit, slid her earpiece in and murmured to the DJ. The music shifted to a gentle hold. The photographer wiped his lens. Ms. Whittaker stood in the doorway of our little lily chapel and lifted her chin once, an old school nod that meant, "I'm here." "Ready?" Sienna asked me. I glanced at the ballroom, the dance floor waiting, the cake immaculate, the guests perched on the edge of scandal and decency. I thought of the girl who once tucked my first trunk show lanyard into a shoebox like it was a trophy. I thought of the way a needle knows where to go if you just guide the fabric right. "I'm ready," I said. We stepped out from behind the lilies like we were stepping onto a stage we hadn't auditioned for, but knew, somehow, we were built to stand on. Sienna didn't ask for silence. She earned it by walking into the center of the room with her head high and her veil gone, looking like a woman who had just decided to live with both eyes open. She took the mic from the planner. No wobble, no giggle. The DJ lowered the music until it felt like a heartbeat in the floor. "Friends," she said, and even the word sounded new in her mouth, less perform and more mean it. "I need 1 minute." The room tilted toward her. Even forks paused in midair. "I have made my living on images," she said. "On telling stories about what looks good and what feels right. But sometimes the story that looks good isn't the one that's true. Tonight, I learned that the gown I'm wearing, the gown you've all been complimenting, is the work of the woman you just heard from." She lifted her hand, palm open, toward me, not dragging me into her spotlight, inviting me to stand at the edge of it. I walked forward and stopped 2 steps back from her shoulder, close enough to be seen, far enough to let her lead. "Her name is Maya," she continued. "She designed this. She sewed her signature into it, hidden, gentle, brilliant. When the light hits, it shows. Not to embarrass, to mark art as hers. House Camellia, thank you for connecting us, even if you didn't intend to introduce us like this." She glanced to Ms. Whittaker, who nodded once, approving and unruffled. "To anyone posting tonight, please tag her name. To my team, we'll fix the credits on all our channels by morning." Her voice didn't tremble, but her eyes shone, and not in the glossy way a ring light does it. In the way a person gets liquid when they decide to tell the truth. "As for my husband," she said, and a soft murmur moved across the room like wind through wheat. "He and I will have our conversation in private, as we should have many of them earlier. But one thing is public. If I have ever mocked a woman for what she wore, or for what she could afford, I'm embarrassed. Tonight I mocked Maya's dress without recognizing the person who made me look like this. That's on me, and I'm sorry." The planner didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her eyes softened the tiniest bit, which is planner language for good choice. "I didn't take the mic. I didn't need to. I put my hand to my heart, a small gesture. She saw it." She nodded. Then she did something I didn't expect. She looked at the DJ. "Hey, can you do the cool flash for a second?" she asked, her tone suddenly lighter. "I want the room to see what I see." The DJ, bless him forever, pulsed the light. On, off, and with each strobe the tiny phoenix wings lifted at the hem and settled, lifted and settled like breath. A soft "oh" moved through the room, a ripple that felt like foam against a shore. The hidden moonmark winked once and vanished back into silk like it was satisfied. "Art finds the light," she said, mostly to herself. Then louder. "Okay, we're going to dance, we're going to eat cake, we're going to celebrate love, but we're also going to respect the hands that make beauty possible. So to start the night the right way, I'd like to dedicate the first dance to the people in this room who work behind the scenes. Planners, photographers, DJs, florists, seamstresses. Ms. Whittaker, would you join me for one song? Maya, will you stay nearby? Ethan." She turned to him, and the whole room held their breath. "Please give me the space I asked for." He stopped mid-step, caught between habit and heat. He backed up. The aunt with the red lipstick gave him a look that could write 1,000 essays. Ms. Whittaker, elegant in black with a pin that caught the light, walked to Sienna like a queen arriving in a garden. The DJ slid into a slow instrumental. And there, on a dance floor that was supposed to debut a husband-wife story, a bride danced for 1 full minute with the head of an atelier who had never been credited on a viral post in her life. People clapped in time, not loud, joyful, respectful. When the minute was up, Sienna pressed a kiss to Ms. Whittaker's cheek, permission asked and granted with a smile, and then handed the song to the room. "Dance," she said. "Eat, enjoy, we'll be back." She and Ms. Whittaker moved toward the lilies. She stopped beside me for a second and reached for my hand. I let her take it. She squeezed once, quick, like a thread catch you tie off so it doesn't slip. Thank you, she whispered. Do the right thing tomorrow, I whispered back. That's how this stays clean. She nodded and vanished behind the white blooms. I turned to step away, but the father of the bride intercepted me with eyes the color of rain. My girl has a spine, he said, pride and surprise wrestling in his voice. She does, I said. He cleared his throat. What happens to him? He jerked his chin toward Ethan, who stood at the edge of the crowd like a salesman whose product had just been recalled. I don't know, I said honestly. But whatever it is, it won't be because I shouted. It'll be because paper and time are patient. He thought about that, nodded once, and went to find his wife. I didn't dance. Not then. I stood in my corner and watched a party heal itself in real time. Laughter returned in careful doses. Cake was cut. Someone cried in the bathroom and then came back out with powder on her nose and a new resolve. Ethan tried twice to move toward Sienna. Twice, the planner, who must have taken judo in a former life, redirected him with a gentle hand and a clipboard. Near the end of the night, the photographer passed me, paused, and said, I've shot 100 weddings. That was new. Sorry for your timeline, I said. He grinned. I live for the true ones. I left before the bouquet toss. It felt right to let the night finish without my shadow on it. On my way out, I glanced over my shoulder. The cool flash hit one last time, and for just a heartbeat, the wings rose across the floor like dawn.